Because there's got to be some common ground here to not solve every problem, but diminish the probability that what we've seen in these mass shootings will occur, and diminish the probability that our children are at risk in their schools.
Well, it has been a whirlwind week for Vice President Joe Biden. He has been at the center of the gun debate, meeting with people on both sides of the conversation, two sides that are both fired up. What's expected to come out of those meetings is a blueprint for the administration's gun policy, and we're focusing on that this morning. Joining me, as they do every week, CNN contributor Maria Cardona and Amy Holmes, the anchor of Real News on the Blaze. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning, Randy.
Happy Saturday. Maria, what do you think the new policy is going to look like?
Well, I think what we've heard mostly that will be included in this in some way, shape, or form will be renewal of the ban on the assault weapons, which, as you know, has now gone away. And I think there's been a lot of focus on trying to get that renewed. And I think, importantly, included in that should be a ban on the high-caliber magazine clips, because that's exactly what the shooter used in Newtown. And we've seen that that is what really leads to these really deadly massacres. I think that something having to do with comprehensive access to mental health. I think what's critical and what the administration has said is that there should be as easy access to mental health facilities and help and programs as there is easy access to guns.
Right.
I think also in universal background checks. And what's interesting is we know that the Gallup poll showed 92% of Americans agree with those universal background checks, and 72% of NRA members agree with those universal background checks. So let me ask Amy then. I mean, Amy, if that is all on the table, which certainly sounds like it is, how hard is it going to be for this administration to sell any gun control plan to the American people?
Well, I think what's remarkable, actually, is the amount of common ground. I would disagree about the assault weapons ban. There's been some reporting, actually, that the White House might step away from that because there is actually quite a lot of controversy over what exactly is an assault weapon. However, the high-capacity magazine that Maria mentioned, there does seem to be common ground around that, and also mental health. Now, that's a little bit tricky in terms of if you spot someone, know someone who is threatening themselves or harm on the Internet, for example. We just had a case of a young man in California who was making Facebook threats that he wanted to go and, commit an atrocity at a school, at a kindergarten, and yet authorities couldn't do anything. Are there laws that are in place, or laws that we should consider to try to prevent these atrocities before they happen? And hopefully we'll be able to come up with solutions when it comes to that. But I have to say that I'm heartened by the areas where gun control advocates and Second Amendment advocates are trying to find common ground. Initially, it seemed that the White House was going to be going way far to the left on this issue, but I think even some Democrats, particularly like Heidi Heitkamp from North Dakota, for example, who are Second Amendment rights advocates, were able to push back.
Yeah. What's the likelihood, do you think, Maria, of getting any gun control legislation through Congress? Forget selling it to the American people.
Right. Well, speaking of going way left, let's talk about going way right. And so I think that that's a very good question to see where the House Republicans are going to be on this, because even though you do see that 72% of NRA members agree with universal background checks, and the majority of Americans agree with the ban on assault weapons, I don't think you see very many Republicans coming forward. You see a lot of Democrats who in the past have been, and are NRA members, focusing on that there needs to be some changes, including Senator Mark Warner and Joe Manchin. And so I think that the focus needs to be on what are Republicans willing to do. The White House is not going to go way left on this. They know that there needs to be some middle ground consensus. And I think that what is going to push that middle ground consensus, Randy, is the American people. I really do think this is a very different moment that we are at after those 20 children were massacred in Newtown.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are saying the same thing. On a very different topic, I want to get both your impressions on the president's new cabinet nominees coming out this week. Amy, I'll go to you first on that one. Your overall opinion and any highlights.
My overall impression is that the president, he is stacking up a railroad car full of very highly controversial nominees. We have Jack Lew for U.S. Treasury, who we already have, we see very stiff opposition to, and the president surely knew that going in. There have been reports that Mr. Lew was quite controversial when it came to the debt ceiling negotiation, that the other side did not find him to be sort of someone negotiating in good faith. He went on Sunday shows, said the budget needed 60 votes to pass, for example, which is clearly, it's either intentionally misleading or he doesn't understand the legislative process. And then, of course, you have Chuck Hagel, and there is controversy on both the left and the right, or rather right and the left, over that nomination. So this president, it seems like he's really pushing the envelope with these nominees. And your producers also pointed out, no women.
Yes, yes. It's been called sort of the band of brothers. A couple of articles have described it that way. Maria, what's your take?
Well, I'm not worried about the quote-unquote controversial nature of these appointees. I think they will get through, and the White House feels pretty confident that they will get through. But I absolutely agree that the next set of nominees and appointees need to look a lot more like this panel, Randy. and I am actually sure that it will, because clearly I don't know if it was just, the timing of the rollout. Let's remember that Susan Rice was really considered for Secretary of State, so I don't think we'd be having this conversation if she hadn't run into some trouble. But certainly diversity has always been a priority for this president, and his past cabinet nominees and positions have certainly reflected the diversity of this country. So I know that moving forward, and he's getting a lot of pressure from women's groups and Latino groups and African American groups, as he should. I am sure that moving forward that his nominees will look a lot more like what this country reflects.
I kind of like the look of this panel too.
Yes,
Randy,
I love the look of this panel, exactly.
Randy, it did occur to me that maybe President Obama needs to consult Mitt Romney's binders full of women.
Oh, boy. There we go. All right. Thank you both very much. Amy, Maria, nice to see you.
Thank you, Randy.